Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions.
That cover's so awesome.
Absolute format is the best way to own this store. Time to empty those wallets and fill those shelves.
Happy Tuesday, all you Minties! This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. And it's Tuesday, so that means that it's time to take an advanced look at these trade paperbacks, graphic novels, collected editions coming out from Marvel Comics this particular week. So, join me. Before getting started, I do want to thank David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of these books. All of these books are due out in the direct market and book market on August 8th or 9th, depending on where you get your books. We're looking at a reprint of a epic collection, a new epic collection, a new series that's relaunching one of my all-time favorite Thor stories, and a look back at a more simpler times by the legendary Paul Levitz, joined by wonderful artist Alan Davis. So let's go ahead and start. As always, I put timestamps in the description of the video, so in case you don't want any kind of spoilers for a particular title, or in case you're not interested in something. But even if you're not, don't forget to smash that like button. Please, that's a very small thing you can do for us here on the channel, and it goes a long way. Alright, let's start with Thor, the Mighty Avenger. So here is Thor, the Mighty Avenger. And I'm going to go ahead and say something. This week's pick of the week, or seal of approval, it's going to be very hard because there's so many books that I enjoyed. And I always have to pick one. That's just, I don't know why I limit myself. But I think, it's fair if I had to pick just one. This would definitely be up there, though. This would be second. The one thing I do want to say about this collection, though, is that Thor, the Mighty Avenger, this particular release, is in digest size. Meaning that it is smaller than your traditional trade paperback size or single issue size. So this is compared to that of a modern epic collection, which, trim size of regular trade paperbacks and single issues and floppies. So it's a little bit smaller, but also cheaper. This one retails for $13.99. So this collects Thor, the Mighty Avenger 1 through 8, and then the free Comic Book Day 2011 one-shot. It is all written by Roger Langridge, and Chris Samney's wonderful artwork is all over here, with colors by Matthew Wilson and Russ Wooten doing the lettering. Now, whenever I did my best places to start reading Thor in collected editions, this was up there. And somebody asked me just this past Saturday what a good jumping on point for Thor is. This right here takes everything that I love about Thor and puts it into one book that you don't have to worry about continuity. It's not bogged down by what happened in the previous story arc or what the new status quo of the Avengers is. You don't have to know anything about comics, really. I mean, a basic understanding of maybe who Thor is, and the movies have helped with that, but even then, you don't need that. Because this reintroduces the character of Thor, so needless to say, it is out of continuity. And I don't want to call this a mini-series because this was supposed to keep on going, and sadly, it was canceled before he could really wrap up some of these stories. I know Langridge had ideas because why Thor is on Earth to begin with was never really resolved. But oh my gosh, this goes back to those simpler times of what people really enjoyed about comics, or what I love about comics. It's an all-ages book, too. That's another beautiful thing about this book, or at least I think it's all ages. And, mileage may vary. Everybody's different. Every parent's different. So we are reintroduced to Odin's son, Thor, coming to Earth for the first time, meeting Jane Foster, a young lady that works at a museum. So not a nurse. A little bit different. And in here, he gets to meet her. She already was kind of having dreams about him. Nobody believes that he is somebody from Asgard. Nobody believes that he has any of these powers. Now, she's going through her own issues with somebody that's obsessed with her at work. And it turns out Mr. Hyde ends up showing up, and there's a big battle between him and Thor. What I also enjoy about this series is that each issue wraps up rather nicely. You're introduced to a concept, and it's wrapped up by the end of the issue. There is an overall arc, like I said, the little mysteries in here that are thrown in by Langridge, but everything is resolved mainly by the end of book. Here's the meeting with the Wasp and Ant-Man right here. Love that. And it's funny because this is not the only throwback book, too. But this one definitely taken out of continuity. This is new imagining or reimagining of these characters like the Warrior 3, Jane Foster, Namor. And this is a really cool take on Namor. He's not a jerk in this. He's actually kind of nice to Thor, and they work out their issues together. There's just something really nice about this. There's an unexpected character that shows up in here, another superhero. So there's all kinds of little Easter eggs thrown in here. And the relationship between Jane Foster and Thor is just completely adorable. Kind of reminds me of a lot of the shoujo manga that I grew up reading in the late 80s, early 90s. Not that we got a ton here in America. Now, all the way in the back is where you're going to find the free comic book day issue, which doesn't really fit into these stories, the first 8 issues, but it's really cute. It's Thor and a World War II Captain America traveling through time, and yes, Loki's involved, of course. All the way in the back, you do have the cover to the graphic novel and the cover to this particular Mighty Avenger graphic novel, and then the character designs by Chris Samney. His art is just, to say simplistic, not that there's anything wrong with simplistic, it's just an understatement, though, because he doesn't need to overlay, like, all these lines. He gets the job done in a simplistic style and is able to tell a sequential story in a phenomenal manner. So, Thor, the Mighty Avenger, this one is 216 pages, $13.99, and almost a seal of approval. Oh, it's so good, though. If you haven't read it, do yourself a favor and read it. The Invincible Iron Man by Gerry Duggan. This is Volume 1, Demon in the Armor. Collecting the first 6 issues of the new ongoing series that started in 2022. This is why I do reading orders. Now, this immediately follows up the Christopher Cantwell series, which I loved so much. And it was just gone too quick. I wanted more. So I was happy to see that he's doing a Hellcat series. So here we have the Invincible Iron Man credits. Gerry Duggan, Juan Frigeri, Andre DeVito, Brian Valenza, and then Joe Caramagna as the letterist. Or letter. Letterist isn't a word. Well, maybe it is. Anyway. This, you don't need to have read any previous issues of Iron Man to enjoy this. You can jump right in from the very beginning and kind of catch you up to speed. It's exactly what Gerry Duggan does in a really cool, unique way. Because we see Tony Stark and, he's doing this little monologue. And as you find out, he's writing a memoir about himself. And who loves Tony Stark more than himself? But he's finding a hard time writing the story. And he goes through the beginning of, like, finding the armor when he was a prisoner of war. And then he's like, oh, everybody knows that story. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about the rise of Stark Industries. Let's talk about all the ladies I've been with. Oh, no, he didn't really quite word it that way. Let's talk about the drinking problem, because I have flaws, about the places that I've lived, and he can't find the right words to write this. Like, he's got writer's block. He doesn't know what to do with himself. Here he meets Emma Frost, and this character right here. This is Fei Long from the pages of X-Men, which is also being written by Gerry Duggan. So what he ends up doing is he ends up going to one of his basements, because he owns many buildings, and you also get the sense that he's running low on money, because he's kind of bought a lot of these weapons that a lot of criminals have tried to sell in the underworld. So we haven't seen that in a little bit, right? I mean, we've seen that Iron Man trope from time to time, but it's been a little bit since I've seen him run dry on funds. So it seems like he's running low on money. He's working on his latest Iron Man armor, which is I think this is the Mach 70, and something goes wrong. Something that it's led to believe that he did it. No, it is the Mark 70. That's right. And he survives this explosion. However, one of his neighbors is not so lucky, and she ends up passing away. She ended up succumbing to all these wounds that she received during the building collapse. So Tony awakes at the hospital, Now, Tony wakes up at the hospital and he's greeted by Captain America and Rhodey and Riri Williams. And they're both, trying, not really putting him against the wall saying, hey, what were you doing working in a civilian building? It's more of like, what exactly happened? Because he doesn't think that he makes mistakes like that. Tony Stark does not make mistakes like the arc reactor shouldn't have blown up like that. Something's going on. Now, he deals with the funeral, he pays for all the expenses, and then he goes to see Jennifer Walters, his attorney, who honestly, he has given her power of attorney, so she makes all these decisions for him. And the one thing that he asks her to do is to go ahead and pay everyone off. Anybody that's suing him, even though she's like, well, they weren't even near the building, and he's like, I don't care, just make this go away. Not make this go away in a sleazy, rich guy way, but make this go away as in, he cares about these people, and even if they were... the thought of anybody getting hurt because of him just drives him crazy. So, yeah, he just ends up paying them off no matter what they ask for. So he goes back and builds, of course, the Mark 70, and he finally gets it up and flying around when he's confronted by this creature right here. This armored person right here, known as the Messenger. Get into a big fight, and then Iron Man finds out that the Messenger isn't really what he thinks it is. It's not the guy that's trying to destroy him, but rather somebody the guy kidnapped to put inside this armor so people can see Tony kill this innocent person and destroy him. So now he realizes that there is somebody out there, that this person known as the Messenger is probably trying to destroy him financially and professionally and through his superhero ways, that he's going to try to figure out what to do. So what he ends up doing is he feels like he's losing control. So he ends up going to an AA meeting and he hears everybody's story. He gets up and leaves and then collapses. And people are like, oh my gosh, he's drunk. And they're recording him. So from the inside, he is being destroyed. And that's all I will say about it. That is the pitch. And so there's this mystery as to who's trying to destroy him and why. And do his friends believe him that he's not picking up the bottle again? Again, some familiar territory we've been with Tony Stark. But I really dig the artwork here. I think the artwork is awesome. We see some returning characters like the Living Laser right here is being a jerk and melting the Iron Man statue. Like, it's really his fault that, or he is to blame for a lot of the things that are happening in the Living Laser's life. Yeah, for Gary's artwork, my gosh, he's a solid artist. Now, there's more action-packed scenes here. There's the issue number 6, which we'll actually look at that one. This one's done by the Veto. Now, this one is a flashback issue. It's not a fill-in issue, it's just a flashback issue going back to the different times of Iron Man's life and kind of connecting him with another character a little bit more, which we've seen before. Yes, a little bit of a retcon, adding a little bit of history in the past between two characters. And for anybody that keeps up with solicits, you probably know where this is all going to lead. But I won't say anything else. This particular book right here has 152 pages and retails for $19.99. Let's look at the extras in the back. I absolutely love this variant. That is such a badass variant. That's by Bob Layton and Paul Mounts. Then you have thumbnail variants right there. To me, this is another great jumping on point. Like, I think Duggan does a phenomenal job of reintroducing you to the character and catching you up to speed on everything that's happened to his life and his new status quo. And some more variant covers. And some more thumbnail. And what I was going to say is, what I always stress is, just because it's a variant does not mean it happens inside of the issue. Believe me. Avengers, War Across Time. This is, oh my gosh, another one that I almost gave the seal of approval to. But there's another book that there was no other choice. This was such a nice, just breath of fresh air. This is a story written by Paul Levitz. The artwork by the legendary Alan Davis, and the colors are so nice, really subtle, by Rochelle Rosenberg. Corey Petit doing the lettering. And this takes place in the past. And I didn't know what to expect when I first heard about this book. My viewers were asking me, you wonderful folks were asking me if I had read it. And no, I hadn't, but I was excited because this is Paul Levitz's first Marvel work, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it is. And I mean, Paul Levitz has been writing comics for decades. This guy that gave us the Darkness Saga, like Legion of Superheroes, and it kicks off with the very beginning here, the Avengers in the 60s, so it goes back to the Silver Age, coming back from an adventure in Avengers number 11. And if you see down here, if you missed Avengers 11, true believer, go on and find a copy now. I love that, as it's that cheap to get. But reprints are out there, such as the new reprint of the Omnibus that has that issue. So the Avengers just got finished fighting a Spider-Man robot, and the gentleman behind the robot is my favorite Avengers bad guy, and that is, of course, Kang the Conqueror. Now, what I love about this series right off the bat is this definitely feels like simpler times, going back to the 60s, and the dialogue, it's not as hokey, and that's not even the right choice of words. Doesn't give you that Silver Age dialogue, obviously. It is really fast and easy to read this book, by the way. I was really surprised by that. But there's a sense of almost innocence to this. Like, this is back when Wasp was flirting with Thor, and then Hank was getting a little bit jealous about that. Captain America was still new to the team, but also new to this world. Like, new to getting out of this ice and walking around in what was modern time. You have little cameos in here by Betty Brant. There's a cameo in here that kind of surprised me. It's like I want to say it's, well, I don't want to spoil it in case you haven't read it, but it's definitely a character that was in the Batman Adam West series. And you can read it and see if you find it. I don't know, maybe I'm wrong. But the premise of this is, of course, Kang, because you saw him on the cover, War Across Time. Kang is manipulating Hulk. Now, it's not the real Hulk. It's another Hulk that he's kind of put together because he has the heart of Hulk in the future. And what he wants to do is, even the plot is pretty basic in Silver Age, he wants to go back and destroy these heroes so he can take over the land and be able to grow the crops that his troops need. So he uses the Hulk against the Avengers, and Thor comes in and saves the day, but not before his hammer is lost to him, and he transforms back to Donald Blake. And then you have everybody's favorite sidekick, Rick Jones, step in and try to talk some sense into the Hulk, and then realizes, wait a minute, this isn't the Hulk, it's something else. Something else is going on, and realizes that it's Kang talking through the Hulk. So it's also a different time, because when Thor loses his hammer, he turns back to Donald Blake, the building collapses on top of him, and Wasp is trying to help Donald Blake, not knowing that he's really Thor. So I thought that was really cool, a nice little touch like that. So the Avengers end up fighting Hulk. In the second issue, we get the Avengers going, okay, we gotta take the war to Kang. We have to go and fight Kang on his own ground. So they go to the Fantastic Four Center instead of asking for help, and they try to just use their time machine. But instead of heading out to the time of Kang, they accidentally bring in Sindri, the King of Dwarves. And this is a character from the Thor issues, the Journey into Mystery issues. I hadn't seen him in a long time, but he comes in and just wreaks havoc. Now, but this gets dealt with by the time you get to the third issue, and I don't want to spoil this for anybody. But if you're asking the question, if you're going to see Kang through these pages, yes, but he kind of is in the shadows until you get to about the fifth issue. And then in the fifth issue, he kind of takes a step forward. So don't expect Kang to be fighting them in every issue. It's Kang kind of pulling the strings. And there's a couple of other surprises. And yes, that does eventually happen if the cover is what draws you in. That is the cover to issue number 5. So don't think like, oh, none of this is going to happen. No, it does. But in time, that was the only dad joke I'm telling today. I promise. But this book was a lot of fun. It ended in a Silver Age fashion, so it just kind of abruptly ended. and I kind of wanted more. It could have been 10 issues, and I would have kept reading. Honestly, this could be an ongoing series to a simpler time of the Silver Age Avengers. I like these type of stories. I like when writers go back to a certain particular time. But most of the time, it's writers that have written the series, whether it's Roger Stearns on Avengers, or Chris Claremont on X-Men, or Wolverine with Larry Hama. They go back to a particular time that they've written the characters. This is a little bit different. This is Paul Levitz coming in and writing the characters for the first time, but knocking it out of the park. And here's some variant covers. The book has 136 pages and retails for $17.99. And if you've not read that, it's solid. And that is Avengers War Across Time. Welcome to the middle of the video. I never say that because it's not usually the middle. I try to put it about halfway through, but it never works out that way. Regardless, here are all the spines of the books coming out this week, and also a reminder to smash that like button, subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet, we put out videos every day. And if you're enjoying this content, there we go. Even if you're not enjoying the content, smash that like button. That would be great. Now, let's continue. Thor, Epic Collection, Immortal Flesh. This is volume 17. And this is the new printing, so this was previously printed. As a matter of fact, here it is. Let's do a quick comparison here with the colors and the way the book looks. Immortal Flesh. Honestly, the colors almost look identical there. It's not like the Uncanny X-Men that had a new color on the logo. Colors there. It's a little bit darker over here in the original printing. And then the backs of the book. Volume 17. Font is identical. Price being different. The ISBN is down here now. And the ISBN retail price is $44.99. The original price is $39.99. And this has been shifted around. So let's look at the inside. To look at the paper stock. Colors are a little more vibrant over here in the new printing. Zoom out a little bit. And let's go over here. Same font. And yeah, it's the same. Okay, let's look at the cover here. This original printing was printed in 2017. In the original printing, the colors are a little more vibrant over here. The orange and the purples right there on Balder. Man, we'll do, yeah, and the red up there instead of like that orange red. We'll do just one more page. So this was one that you all voted for, and it is now back to print. Now let's talk a little bit more about what's in here. And let's put that one up. Okay, this collects Thor 401 to 418. So this is after the introduction of a very important character to Thor that we didn't really think it was an important character at the time. And that is, of course, Eric Masterson. Now, Eric Masterson was first introduced in the last volume, in the previous volume, the one that came before this one. But things are about to get complicated for Thor. And what I really liked about this series, so this continues the Tom DeFalco and Ron Frenz era of Thor. What I liked about this is that they started doing the Tales of Asgard at the end of the issues. So there's a little bit of extra stories from Thor's past, and that started happening again. It's very similar to what they were doing in the Silver Age, just telling stories about different characters, or telling a story about Thor and Loki when they were young. And Joe Sinnott doing a lot of the inks earlier on. We have a new Executioner, because if you read the Walter Simonson run, you know that the original Executioner was, well, he was taken off the table for a little while. And Joe Sinnott gave it this Jack Kirby feel to Ron Frenz inks, like, or his finishes, like, really gives it that Jack Kirby feel, including like the Kirby crackle. So in here, yes, Thor does get to fight Annihilus. Right now, he is pretty much the hero of both home in Asgard and the streets of New York. And he goes up into space. He goes and fights, like I said, Annihilus in the negative zone. And something happens here in the next few issues that is going to change the life of Thor. And if you've not read it, then I'm just going to warn you. It's a little bit of spoilers, but I think some people know what I'm talking about. especially if you read the Tom DeFalco Epic Collections after this. But just in case, yeah, just minor spoilers as to this thing that happens here. And it starts with Hercules coming back to the book. So Hercules makes a big return here. Thor ends up getting his old armor back, and something happens to Eric Masterson in this particular story here in 408. Now, Thor grows his beard out because of this new armor, or his old armor that he's donning. I love this part right here when he's shaving, because Hercules is like, "Oh, what are you doing, man? You know that the growth of beard is the symbol of manhood to Vikings." And Thor's like, "I'm not a Viking. I'm from freaking Asgard, dude." So, in this particular issue is where Eric Masterson gets hurt. And Thor makes a deal with his father to save the life of Eric Masterson by merging both of their souls. So now Eric Masterson can turn into Thor. So it's like having a new Thor. One of the biggest selling points of these issues, too, is a couple of backup stories by Mike Mignola in the back here. So you get Mike Mignola drawing some Thor. And those are parts of the Tales of Asgard. So we have a new Thor. He doesn't have his beard yet, but he'll get that new costume, I believe, in the next Epic Collection. You have to team up with Doctor Strange. The crossover annuals here, which were crossing overs with the Atlantis attacks. And then, yes, the Acts of Vengeance. Have to talk about this. So in the Acts of Vengeance, the storyline is that somebody, not going to say who because it's revealed in the pages of the Avengers, is manipulating all the villains to say, "Hey, Magneto, aren't you done fighting with the X-Men? Go and fight Captain America for a while. Hey, Tiger Shark, everybody loves you. Everybody knows you're a Namor bad guy. Why don't you go and fight Wolverine instead?" Things like that. So who Thor ends up fighting is none other than the Juggernaut. But this also marks something extra special. And that is these guys right here. It's war. Total war. That's right. The first appearance of the New Warriors is in issue 411. Now, this is taking place, of course, after the first issue of New Warriors. But this is in publishing order. So this was released before. This is technically their first appearance. And here they are for the first time together. Night Thrasher, with characters that have appeared in the past, like Speedball, created by Steve Ditko, and Firestar, created in the pages of the miniseries, but came from Amazing Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. Namorita, Namor's cousin. Marvel Boy, who's been around forever and is destined to become one of the Guardians of the Galaxy, Major Victory. And, of course, the man called Nova, or the boy called Nova. So they are here to team up with Thor and help save the day by taking down the Juggernaut. I love that first appearance. You get the backup stories with Beta Ray Bill. Ulik the Troll wearing a suit. Should have stayed with that. That's a cool suit. And then Beta Ray Bill eventually coming into the main storyline. After he gets done with his backup stories, there's the big fight with Ulik. And again, Hercules sticking around for a while. So this is the latest printing in case you missed the first time around. I always like to stress the fact that these don't have as big a print run as something new. So keep that in mind if you're planning at all to pick it up. But all the way in the back, we do have some extras. Let's look here. The Young Warriors. They're not that young anymore. And some characters. Oh no, this is from the official handbook of the Marvel Universe. Ron Frenz, Joseph Rubinstein, and yes, some designs for the characters here who were going to be the Young Warriors. And this, I believe, is the plot, yeah, by Tom DeFalco. 488 pages. That is a beautiful piece right there by Brett Blevins. And the book retails for $44.99. That Big John? Yeah, Big John Buscema with Brett reading on inks. Walter Simonson doing some pinup. Mark Badger, who's got a very unique style. If you've seen it in the pages of Excalibur, in the first omnibus. Daredevil, Epic Collection, Into the Fire. Now, this is a big deal because this is volume 17 of the Daredevil Epic Collections. And it's a big deal because this is a gap filler. So this is a little bit of a milestone for you Epic folks. And honestly for anybody that gets into collected editions, because a lot of the stories in here have never been collected in any trade paperback. Because we're looking at the DG Chichester era of Daredevil, right before Fall from Grace. There's even a joke about one of the covers. And they're like, we're just having some fun with this cover because we're about to destroy Daredevil's life. And it is a milestone because it's, I think this is, gives us the 5 runs of books from Epic Collection number 12 to volume 16, Dead Man's Hand. So you have a straight run of books. And then you have volume 18, of course, being the Fall from Grace that I just talked about. So it's one of those big gap fillers a lot of people have been waiting for. And we have Scott McDaniel on early artwork here. It's a lot different than his style, even through the pages of Fall from Grace, where he's got used a lot of shadows. There's pinups here like John Romita Jr. And you have some new characters showing up here, some old villains returning through the pages of Daredevil, and Chichester just kind of getting used to this character of Daredevil. There's Shock right there, who is of course related to Mr. Fear, or at least claims to be the daughter of Mr. Fear. So this collects issues 312 to 318, Daredevil Annual number 9, Daredevil Black Widow Abattoir, and then Daredevil The Man Without Fear 1 through 5. And you can start seeing, I love this evolution of an artist, you can start seeing Scott McDaniel's artwork turn into what it eventually became. There's a really solid fill-in issue in here that's just Matt Murdock trying to solve some mysteries. Like the beginning is him trying to solve this arsonist problem for a couple of issues. This issue right here in 316 is just Matt Murdock. It's not a Daredevil story, or it's not him donning the costume of Daredevil. And I really like this one. This one's got Kevin Kobasic doing the fill-in artwork in here. And he gets the job done. It's just a story of Matt, taking down some bad guys without having to don the costume. But don't worry, the costume is immediately back in the next issue. You get the fight with the Taskmaster and Stiltman making a return in here. And this is the cover I was talking about. This is it, folks. The last issue of Daredevil before Daredevil 319. And they've been hyping it up, like the house ads. And I remember the house ad with him falling out of the building. And it says right here, editorial disclaimer, don't worry, we know it looks stupid, but we wanted to have some fun before we ruin Dee Dee's life. Wow, it's like setting up exactly what's going to happen in the next, but nobody knew, right? We didn't know what we were in for. We didn't know what was going to, and I'm one of these people that actually liked Daredevil Fall from Grace. And we have the annual. This is annual number 9 in here, which introduces us to the character known as the Devourer. This guy right here. This is written by Greg Wright and John Hebeck doing the art in here. But the very important thing in here is the Glenn Hurling story with Scott McDaniels on artwork, and that is Resurrections, because Resurrections has a character that plays a big part in the story of Fall from Grace. And no, I'm not talking about Zombie. This was the big return of Zombie. Unfortunately, nothing really big came of it. Joe Chiodo right here doing the artwork for Abattoir. It's like a big torture story that Daredevil helps Black Widow out, and they both team up to take down the villain there. And that one has been collected in the Black Widow Epic Collections and the Omnibus. Now we need to talk about this. So before I talk about this book, for this alone, gets the near mint condition seal of approval. If you've never read The Man Without Fear, oh my gosh, I love this story so much. It is written by Frank Miller, drawn by John Romita Jr., Al Williamson doing the inks, and then Chris Sheely doing the coloring with Joe Rosen, one of my favorite letterers of all time. Oh my gosh, he's been gone for a long time now. He passed away a few years back. This started out as a movie script. Frank Miller wrote the movie script of Daredevil, and it never came to be. So what he did was take the movie script and turn it into a 5-issue limited series, telling the origin of Daredevil from boyhood to losing his father, to becoming this athletic kid in college, to learning to use his other senses, and retconning. And I use that term on my channel a lot, and I never mean it as in bad or good. I just mean going back and changing things from the past. And sometimes it's good, sometimes it works, and sometimes it doesn't. This, what he does is he kind of shoehorns the character of Elektra, which he, of course, introduced, and Stick, also introduced by him during his big run on Daredevil, and he adds them to Matt's childhood. Like, you see glimpses of other characters through here. You see the accident that led to his blindness. You start seeing him use his other abilities, his other senses, and then you see Stick in the background, kind of seeing him and just watching him. And I don't mean physically watching him, because of course Stick is blind, but then starting to train him. So again, things you hadn't seen in the past outside of, Frank Miller's run. And then afterwards, other writers came in and started telling stories with Stick and Elektra. But he adds that as a big part of Matt's childhood. And then he also starts Matt in college. You see the Kingpin take a big role in Matt's life, especially in the last 2 issues. With a certain kidnapping and playing a big role, bigger than he did in Daredevil's past. Because remember, he wasn't Daredevil's villain. He started off as Spider-Man's villain. It wasn't until Frank Miller took over the book that he was like, hey, let's borrow this guy and make him the Daredevil bad guy. Then, of course, that varies, right? Stiltman and Bullseye, although I don't think anybody really thinks of Stiltman as his villain. Here's Elektra, his meeting with Elektra in college, his friendship with Foggy Nelson starting, until you get to see him don the costume. Now, if you're like, where's the costume? That does come, but it doesn't come until later. And oh my gosh, I think the artwork is some of the best. I love the way that John Romita Jr. draws the Kingpin. Like, this entire miniseries is solid. And at this time, I wasn't the biggest Romita Jr. fan, because he was doing that blocky style. But for some reason, it worked here in Daredevil, The Man Without Fear. And of course, that could be some of the inks, right? But just look how big and menacing the Kingpin looks. He draws my favorite Kingpin. I love the way he looks. He doesn't look like a joke. It takes a certain artist to draw somebody that big and menacing and still look like somebody that could rip your heart out physically, like in Temple of Doom. But just phenomenal artwork, phenomenal story. If you've not read it, it's pretty much Daredevil year 1. Now let's look at the back here for some extras. You do have the interview here with some of the creators, a little bit of behind the scenes. This is the limited hardcover. Unused pages were lettered and inserted into issue number 4 of that hardcover. Then I think this is the, let's see here, pin up by John Romita Jr. for the Man Without Fear hardcover and how it all began. I mean, you get the entire script there, and then some pin-ups by John Romita Jr. 528 pages, and the book retails for $49.99. That, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, cheapgraphicnovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these books. Let me know in the comments down below which one, Uncanny Omar talked pretty one day, which ones you're picking up. If you're getting the Daredevil in All Epic Collection, or Mighty Thor in Epic Collection, or if you're waiting for Omnis, I would love to see you at the Falco Omnibus one day. And hopefully one day a big oversized hardcover of Thor Mighty Avenger. I think it's one of the most underrated, most wonderful series. And what you thought about Avengers War Across Time, in case you read it, or the new Invincible Iron Man by Gerry Duggan. If you have questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button on the way out. Everyone stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.